Welcome to the final part of the Castlevania 2 playthrough. We're at the final mansion of the game, and it is more of the same. The same type of enemies, just a different color this time. I think, yeah, they're white this time, so they're the strongest they'll ever be. And now that we're at the final part of the game, I think it's time that I make my final verdict on the game. And I think that Castlevania 2, it's not as bad as everyone says, but that doesn't mean it's a good game. It's certainly not a good game. It has a lot of problems, from the whole design of it to just some laziness in the graphics, like the enemies. But it's okay. It's just an okay game. It's definitely the worst Castlevania on the NES. It's definitely not as good as Castlevania 1 and 3. But many people claim that this is the worst 2D Castlevania game, and that is just... I cannot agree with that. There is one 2D Castlevania game that it's just horrible. It's awful. And yes, I am gonna play it. I don't want to play it, but I'm going to. Just to show off how bad it is, and to tell those people that think this is the worst game, to tell them that it's not. There's much worse out there. And for most games I play, I usually tell you to go buy this game or go play it. But for this one, I'm just gonna tell you to pass on it. You don't need to go out and play this game. Watching this playthrough is enough to understand what this game has to offer. And you don't really need to go out and play it because, well, it's not that great of a Castlevania game. There's many other options. If you're a hardcore Castlevania player, then by all means, go ahead and play this game. Because, you know, just so you can say you've played all the Castlevania games, or whatever you want to say. If you want bragging rights, or you just want to play them all for satisfaction, then go ahead, play this game. But otherwise, I'd say avoid it because it's just not that great of a game. And most people agree. But it's definitely not just a completely terrible game. And I think a lot of the hate from this game comes from the angry video game nerd, because he just absolutely hates this game. Anyways, we're at the second boss of the game. It is Carmilla, I believe it is called. And it has a very easy strategy. It'll just go around in circles around the room. Occasionally it will drop fireballs. If you equip Dracula's Rib, you will be practically invincible to all of her attacks because it can deflect all of the fireballs. So the only way you're going to get hurt is if you're walking forward, because if you're jumping, you have the shield in front of you. So yeah, it's a really easy boss. You should have absolutely no problems with it. If you have the golden knife, just throw it at her a bunch of times and she will die very quickly. After you kill her, go throw the oak stake at the orb as usual and grab Dracula's ring. Dracula's ring has absolutely no purpose. It's useless. However, you do need it to beat the game. To beat the game. So make sure you get it. There I just got a game over, which really doesn't matter at this point, because the only penalty for a game over is just losing all of your hearts. But at this point in the game, I don't need hearts anymore because I've bought all the upgrades I need. So yeah, a game over it's just not a penalty. If you go talk to that guy in the robe just a couple seconds ago, he will give you full amount of garlic and laurels, so that's nice. You don't really need the garlic, but it's nice to have the extra laurels. Get some invincibility if you need it, although I don't think we pass by any other swamps. Yeah, I don't think we pass by any other swamps, so we don't really need them. But they're nice if you're low on health or whatever. There's really no point to them. Because if you die, you just come back to the same spot with full health, and if you get a game over, you just lose all your hearts, and you don't really need hearts at this point in the game. So, It's really useless. You don't need to talk to him, but if you feel like it, then go ahead. I watched quite a lot of videos of people just complaining about Castlevania 2, because I wanted to see why people think it's so bad. Because I know the typical reasons why people think it's bad. You know, the cryptic puzzles, the confusing layout. That makes sense, but I wanted to get some more detailed criticisms, because the confusing layout criticism, that's pretty generic, and it doesn't really apply to today because you can just look up a walkthrough on the internet. So a lot of people said the enemy design was not very good, how they just reused the same enemies, and I can agree with that. Other people complained about the graphics. They just weren't as good as 1 and 3, and I can sort of agree with that. Castlevania 1 and 3, they go for a more colorful graphic scheme. There's a lot of contrast between colors. The best example of this is in Stage 3 of the original Castlevania, where the orange level contrasts with the blue background. That's where it's most noticeable. Castlevania 2 went for more of a dark layout, which isn't necessarily bad. I don't mind it, but some people complained about it. And all the other criticisms I heard were, it's too hard to figure out. Oh, and one other thing, the bosses. A lot of people complain about the bosses, and I can agree with that. They're very poorly designed in this game. There's not enough of them. They're too easy. They really could have spent more time with the bosses. They should have just given each mansion a boss and made them harder. Even if you had to reuse some of the bosses from the first game, not like exactly, just like the same boss, just a different strategy, I wouldn't have minded that. I mean, they pretty much reuse bosses for every Castlevania game, because, you know, you always see the Grim Reaper. Most of the time you see the Frankenstein monster, and in a lot of the games you see the mummies, and you always see bats, which was a boss in the first game and a regular enemy, so yeah, whatever. So they definitely could have improved with the bosses. If I was going to give this game a letter grade, I'd give it a C. It's certainly not bad. It didn't fail, but it really could have done a lot more to make it better, to improve upon it, to make it more like the first game. Because I don't hate this game for the layout. I mean, yeah, it's confusing and it's hard to figure out, but the whole concept of it, I like that. I just wish that they made it more like Castlevania 1 with the bosses and just the feeling of progression. Because in the first Castlevania, as you progressed through the stages, you felt like you were getting closer and closer to Dracula. However, in this game, it doesn't really feel like that. You're just wandering upon an open world that it feels the same pretty much everywhere. And if they could have changed the scenery a little bit, I feel like they would have been a lot more successful. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but the mood of this game, it feels lacking. It just, I don't know. I'm not really sure what happened with this game. If you know, please tell me. Did they just not have enough time to develop it? Or, I don't know. If you know that, please tell me, because I would like to know. The final thing I wanted to touch on before we get to the end of the game is that there is actually a ROM hack for this game where a person retranslated all of the text into more understandable things. So all the townspeople actually give you clues. So the game is a lot easier to figure out, which is really good. If you, yeah, I don't know. It's good. The original version probably should have been like that, but whatever. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it's Castlevania Simon's Quest Redacted. I think that's it. I'm not quite sure. But if you want to try out that version, go ahead. It's definitely better than playing the original, just because the hints are better and the townspeople actually tell you relevant things. They don't tell you, you know, laurels in your soup enhance its aroma, or don't look into the Death Star or you will die. Like, I want to hear things that are relevant, you know. I don't know. It just... Did they, like, mistranslate a lot of the text? Like, was this game good in Japanese, like all the townspeople? Were they telling you helpful hints? Was it helpful in the Japanese version? I don't know that either. Feel free to tell me if you know, because if it was just a mistranslation error, then I can sort of forgive the game. But anyways, let's live here together. Okay. Yeah. This is fun. Really fun. I think she's the, like, only person in this town. Or maybe there was someone in one of the houses earlier. Anyways, this is the final area in the game before we get to Dracula's castle. And it is just like every other area. No new enemies, just some mummies, some birds. We've seen this before. And at first, when I first played this game, I didn't realize you could jump over those gravestones. I thought they were part of the background, because they kind of look like they can be part of the background. I don't know, just a quick little fun fact, I guess. And what is this? It is the final bridge to Dracula's castle. We finally made it after 5.5 parts. We are going into Dracula's castle, and I am sure it's going to be incredibly difficult with a ton of enemies, and it's going to be great. Ooh, we get some new music. All right, I like this music. It's very, I don't know. It invokes a certain mood that the rest of the game has been lacking. You know, it's time to face Dracula. So you may be wondering at this point, where are all the enemies? And to tell you, there are no enemies in Dracula's castle. None whatsoever. And this is simply inexcusable. There's no reason why there shouldn't be any enemies. I mean, it's the final castle of the game. And also, it's very short. It's shorter than all the other mansions, which makes no sense. I mean, I'm glad that it's shorter, because if it was really long and there was no enemies, it would be really boring. So I guess I'm glad that it's short, but not really. Anyways, we're at the final boss in the game, and can you believe it? It is Dracula himself. The 5 body parts come out of Simon and reform into Dracula. And you're probably expecting a really hard final boss like the original one, but you're not gonna get that. If you have the golden knife, just continuously throw it at him. If you have laurels, you can use them and just whip him to death. Or you can use the holy flame and just stun him, and he'll never move. He's really easy. And, yeah, it's kind of disappointing, but I'll talk about that in a second. Here is one of 3 endings in this game. There are 3 endings depending on how quickly you beat the game. This is considered the best ending. You have to beat the game in less than 8 game days, I believe. And a game day is just the full cycle, 1 day and 1 night cycle. That's 1 game day. So if you beat it in under 8 game days, you get this ending. It is considered the best ending. It shows Simon at Dracula's grave, and then the text says he defeated him and everything is happy. Some people say that the endings are all screwed up in this game. Like, the best ending is not the best ending, and I don't know. I've heard some people talk about it. I don't really agree, because, well, we'll get to those endings in a minute. The text here, it just scrolls really slow. Like, who reads this slowly? Like, nobody. Maybe they figured, huh, no one's ever going to make it to the end of the game. Let's just make the ending really slow, or... No, that doesn't make any sense, but... That's the first ending of Castlevania 2. And there we see, what's this? Dracula's hand comes out of the grave, implying that he will come back in another game, and he does. Here is the second ending. I believe it is the normal ending, not the best ending, just the normal ending. And I believe this one is for completing the game in between 8 and 15 game days. I think that's the range. I don't know, I'll post it on the screen right now, just to clarify, but this is the normal ending. Your first time playing, this is most likely the ending you are going to get, assuming you are using a guide, because, you know, you'll still get lost and stuff like that. This is most likely the ending you will get. It's very unlikely that you'll get the best ending on your first playthrough, because 8 game days, that's pretty tough to beat. I think I was at like 7.5 game days for this playthrough, so I got the best ending, luckily. Even if I didn't get the best ending, I would have just input a password, which would allow me to get the best ending a lot easier. This game it has no save feature, which it really doesn't make any sense. There should be a save feature, but there's not. I mean, other games at the time had a save feature, like The Legend of Zelda, for instance. So, I don't know. Actually, I think the Japanese version had a save feature. I think? I could be wrong on that. Here's the third ending of the game. It is considered the worst ending. Simon basically dies. You know, he doesn't survive the curse. He defeats Dracula, but for some reason he doesn't survive the curse. I don't know why. It says that peace has been restored and everybody's happy, but Simon is dead. So, yeah, okay. I don't know what to think of that. As I was saying, I wish the final boss was a little bit harder. He's a little too easy. He gets stunned way too easily. You could just stun him until he dies. He does do a lot of damage to you if he actually manages to attack you, but he really never gets a chance to attack you. And that concludes the Castlevania 2 playthrough. I hope you enjoyed. Next up, we're gonna play Castlevania 3. We're gonna go sort of chronologically, not really in terms of when they were released, but just, you know, I'm gonna first do the NES games, then the Super Nintendo games, then the Game Boy games and the Game Boy Advance games, and then the DS games if I can. I don't have a way to do that at this time, but if I can in the future, I will. But yeah, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for my next challenge or playthrough, whatever they may be. And until next time, this is UAA signing out. I'll see you guys later.